Welcome back, everyone. After hours here on the Big Talker FM. Phone numbers if you'd like to call in. Local 332-6390. Toll free 1-800-760-8190. In studio tonight we have Thom Goolsby, who is running for a state Senate seat. I forgot the district again. Ninth.
Just remember the Beatles song, number 9.
Okay, number 9.
That's the way I remember it.
Because there's your guys' race, and then there's the congressional race, and they're the two ones we're always focusing on every show. And so I always get 9 and 7 mixed up.
What is the congressional seat?
7th.
There we go.
See,
and what prosecutorial district are we in? Do you know?
No.
The 5th.
Okay.
The only reason I know that is I have to write that on all the forms. Yeah, it's really weird.
5, 7, and 9. Okay, I got that. All right, well, you brought up a very interesting point in the last segment. Uh-huh. This health care bill that we passed.
Yes.
And all these states are suing. We talked, I think it was 9 yesterday. And I actually have an article here. I think it's from Washington Post, Virginia. The minute it got signed, the guy walked over and filed the lawsuit.
Yes.
And so what can we do to fight this lawsuit? What can we do to fight the bill?
This is where lawyers can actually come to the rescue. Do you believe it? Wow. And lawyers who actually have trial experience can be helpful here. We've got several things. One of the most helpful things to go to is what Bill McCollum, the Attorney General of Florida, has done. He actually sent a letter out on March the 16th to the President of the National Association of Attorneys General about the individual health care mandate. And he went through and actually cited a number of reasons under the law as to how this is unconstitutional. The first is the U.S. Constitution grants no authority to the Congress to compel citizens to purchase health insurance when those citizens choose not to enter into the health care market. So basically, never before has the Congress compelled Americans under the threat of government fines or taxes to purchase an unwanted product or service simply as a condition of existing in this country. That's called a living tax. We don't require that. The Congress doesn't possess the constitutional authority to enact such a requirement. And the U.S. Supreme Court long ago recognized that the powers of the legislature are defined and limited, and those limits may not be mistaken or forgotten. And that goes all the way back to something that when you go to law school, which I hope you guys do, Marbury v. Madison. Marbury v. Madison talks about, and then there's another law another big case of United States v. Morrison that says every law enacted by the Congress must be based on one or more of its powers enumerated in the Constitution. Guess what? There is no life, liberty. Under North Carolina law, there's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and the enjoyment of the fruits of one's own labor. They stop at number 3 under the U.S. Constitution. But there is no right to free health care. That's not a right. And the reason it's not a right, you guys know, doctors are not slaves. I mean, think about that. There is no right enumerated under the Constitution that someone else has to do for you. There's no such thing. Nobody has to do something for you against their will. And that's what they're demanding. I see Kevin's mind.
Well, I had a discussion sometime with one time with a liberal who quoted promote the general welfare under the Constitution. I said it says promote, not provide.
That's right.
The general welfare.
And not only promote, but it also says we do have another constitutional amendment against slavery. I mean, we do. There was one that was passed after the Civil War.
I heard something about that. They leave that out of the textbooks a lot, though.
I was just going to say, I heard someone say, where in the Constitution? Someone say, where is health care? And I said, well, it's obvious. It's right after the abortion are allowed and right before gay marriage is allowed. Because I heard liberals, those are always in the. It shocks me that liberals can find these things in the Constitution, but then something like the Second Amendment, which is clearly stated, that for some reason they pay no attention to.
Well, they've always said if you defined the Second Amendment to the level they've universally defined the First Amendment, you would be able to own a backpack nuclear device in your garage. But they've never gone quite that far. But another example that the Attorney General of Florida, and incidentally, folks, we're talking about Florida because our Attorney General is doing nothing. I mean, he's on the other side, okay? And our legislature, when we talk about their 13 states that already have proposed bills that would amend state law to make sure, and I was reading you some of the Virginia law, and the Virginia law says to preserve the freedom of all residents of the state to provide for their own health care, a law or rule shall not compel directly or indirectly any person, employer, or health care provider to participate in a health care system. Now, what about what's going on in North Carolina? Well, don't forget, they're on the other team here. They're on the other side. They are all for the national health care. I mean, they're doing nothing. Roy Cooper, our Attorney General, is doing nothing, and our General Assembly is not going into special session to help solve this problem.
Well, here's the article I got from the Washington Post. The Virginia Attorney General is coming out, and he says the status of being a citizen or resident of the Commonwealth of Virginia is not a channel of interstate commerce, nor a person or thing interstate commerce. And he goes on to say, basically saying, because I think isn't that what they're using in order to pass this?
Yes.
Or part of it. So
yes, it's always interstate commerce.
Yeah, that's Mark Levin writes about that in Men in Black. And I thought that's another great point, that living in a state has nothing to do with interstate commerce.
Right.
And I feel like there's so many ways. However, I was talking to someone today about this, and I said it's going to get overturned. I have no doubts about this. But McCain-Feingold took, 8 years in order to finally get overturned? So are we looking at potentially 7 or 8 years before this thing finally gets tossed out and the damage will be done?
All sorts of harm that could be done in the meantime. And that is, again, don't forget, folks, there are people on the Supreme Court that will be retiring or dying in the not-too-distant future.
Yeah.
And we're only a slim 5-4 majority on good days.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden we lose 2 and it becomes a 4 to a 4-5 instead of a 5-4 or a 3-6. I mean, we're all of a sudden we're not looking good at all. But I'm looking to follow that up, Tyler. The Commerce Clause gives no authority for Congress to transform a citizen's individual choice to be inactive in the marketplace into a compulsion to purchase apparently unwanted insurance or to be penalized. And don't forget about the penalties that you end up suffering, because the Senate bill requires that individuals and families without, quote, qualifying health coverage pay a penalty with their tax return of $750 for an adult, $375 for a child, and that's to be phased in beginning in 2014. Everything's phased in as we're all being phased out.
Yeah, I did notice that most of all the horrible things
don't come till later.
2014.
Well, because you got to get past the 2012 presidential election. That's when literally the wheels come off the cart. I mean, that's all they want to get through. That's all they got to get through.
Well, I mean, because if you look at it, I mean, I think they've already accepted the fact that 2010 is not going to be a very fun year for them.
When does the Mayan calendar end the world? Is that 2012?
12, yeah.
So probably right after the election. Huh?
That's
sometime in December.
I actually think universal health care in America is in Revelations somewhere.
Are we actually rooting for the Mayan calendar to be correct, so we don't have to see these provisions come in? And that's kind of sad.
I'm not going to go that far, Tyler. Not yet.
You did bring up the Supreme Court, and the 2 justices that we've been hearing a lot about are Breyer and Ginsburg. And they both are in the 4 vote, correct?
Yes.
I mean, I don't think there's no one in the 5, because I know Alito and luckily John Roberts are still fairly young, and Scalia
and Thomas.
And I don't know how, because we were talking the other day about this. They all seem. I said, well, Scalia would go on a ventilator just to make sure he was not leaving office when Barack Obama was in power.
He absolutely would. I've actually had the honor to sit and smoke a cigar with him several years ago down in South Carolina after he gave a speech. And he is so smart that you really just talk about family stuff with him. He's like scary. You don't even discuss law with him. I mean, he was that crazy smart, and all of his kids that crazy smart too. So yeah, you just sort of, so Justice Scalia, how do you like the cigar? I mean, it's like, just stay away from him. But no, and what a great, it's nice that we have some folks up there that we can count on, but it is scary how all those things go. And somebody was asking me today when we were talking about it earlier, I think it was Paul Knight was asking me about, Tom, why isn't the Supreme Court weighing in now? Well, they can't weigh in. I mean, they can't wait until the legislation
is passed. They can't be proactive.
That's right, and it's brought to them. I wish that they could. They can't, and they won't. But you did hit on the accurate point with the Commerce Clause, which is one. So we've got basically the Constitution has no authority to compel people to purchase health insurance. That is, to enter into a contract. The Commerce Clause, which we talked about, and then we've also got the individual mandate doesn't comport with the Congress's taxing power. That's another potential defense.
That's looking good for us, I say.
It's looking
sure
better.
Is. Well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight.
My pleasure, guys.
Thank you for weighing in on everything. We'll definitely have you back again sometime as the election season heats up. We'll be back with more right after this.